a WikiVidi Documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Doki Doki Literature Club. Doki Doki Literature Club is a visual novel developed by Team Salvato. It was released on September 22, 2017 for Microsoft Windows, Mac OS, and Linux, and later on October 6 for Steam. The story follows a male high school student who joins the school's literature club and interacts with its 4 female members. The game features a mostly linear story, with some alternate scenes and endings depending on the choices the player makes. While it appears at first glance to be a light-hearted dating simulator, it is in fact a psychological horror game that involves heavy use of breaking the fourth wall. The game was developed in an estimated 2-year period by a team led by Dan Salvato, known previously for his modding work for Super Smash Bros. Melee. According to Salvato, the inspiration for the game came from his mixed feelings toward anime, and a fascination for surreal and unsettling experiences. Upon its release, Doki Doki Literature Club received critical praise for its metafictional and horror elements, with PC Gamer calling it one of the most surprising games of the year. Gameplay. Doki Doki Literature Club is a visual novel. As such, the majority of the gameplay consists of the player reading the game's story, with little impact on what direction the plot takes. At certain points in the game, the player is prompted to make decisions which may affect how the story progresses. The game also features a poetry writing mechanic as part of the literature club. The player is given a list of various words to select from that will make up their poem. Each girl in the literature club has different word preferences, and will react when the player picks a word that they like. Additional scenes can be unlocked for each girl if the player writes poems targeted at that girl's tastes, and chooses the correct dialogue options. Which scenes the player has viewed during their playthrough will determine what ending the story has. At one point in the game, the player is forced to access the game's files and delete a specific file to progress further. Plot. The protagonist is invited by his childhood friend, Sayori, to join their high school's literature club. The protagonist then meets the other members of the club, Natsuki, Yuri, and the club president Monika. The protagonist starts to participate in the club's activities such as writing and sharing poetry, and grows close to the 4 girls. Whilst preparing for an upcoming school festival, Sayori reveals that she suffers from depression and confesses her love for the protagonist. As the day of the festival approaches, Sayori's usually bittersweet poem is replaced with a dark and morbid note repeatedly telling someone to get out of her head. When Sayori does not answer her text messages, the protagonist leaves the club meeting and rushes to Sayori's home, where he discovers that she has hanged herself. The game begins to glitch, and as the protagonist wonders if they could have saved Sayori, the game abruptly ends. The player is sent back to the main menu, with all previous save files erased. The game starts as usual, but what used to be Sayori's text and name is replaced with unreadable text. The game suddenly glitches and restarts. However, Sayori is absent, and any previous references to her are either completely removed or replaced by glitches and meshes of portions of other characters' sprites. Monika instead invites the protagonist to the club. Unsettling events begin occurring. The game rewinds after the protagonist finds Yuri cutting herself, and refuses to accept dialogue options that do not favor Monika. Just before the festival, Yuri presents the protagonist with a poem consisting of illegible writing, bloodstains, and a yellow stain. She confesses her love to the protagonist, then stabs herself to death. The protagonist spends the weekend sitting by her body. On Monday, Natsuki enters, vomits at the sight of Yuri's corpse, and flees. Monika then appears, apologizing, and deletes the character files for Yuri and Natsuki, causing the game to restart once again. Upon starting a new game, the protagonist is placed in a room with Monika seated across from them. Monika explains that she is aware that she is a character in a game, and that she is able to manipulate the game's files to alter the other characters' personalities or erase them altogether. She admits to making Sayori more and more depressed, and amplifying Yuri's obsessive personality to make them more unlikable so the player would focus on her instead. She confesses her love directly not to the protagonist, but to the person playing the game. Monica will sit and talk to the player indefinitely about various topics until the player manually enters the game's directory and deletes Monica's character file. Upon doing this, the game glitches once more and Monica panics as she is deleted from the game's world. Initially Monica lashes out at the player for killing her, but after a pause she confesses that she still loves the player, and expresses regret for everything she has done. Monica then restores the other girls, and removes herself from the game. The game starts over once again with Sayori, Yuri and Natsuki all alive, playing out similarly to the initial playthrough. Shortly after meeting everyone, Sayori tells the player that now that she is the president of the literature club, she knows everything about the game and what happened with Monica, and intends to stay with the player forever. Monica immediately intervenes once more via text prompt and deletes Sayori for endangering the player. Monica then speaks audibly to the player, and sings a song titled, Your Reality, to the player while the credits roll, and the game is slowly deleted. After the credits, the game displays a note from Monica, stating that she has disbanded the literature club, because there is no happiness in it. Further playthroughs require the game to be reinstalled or hard reset. However, if the player viewed all of the optional scenes in a single playthrough, requiring saving and loading at several points before witnessing Sayori's initial suicide, an alternate ending is presented. Sayori instead accepts the nature of her reality, and tearfully expresses her gratitude to the player for trying to make all of the girls happy. She says goodbye, hoping that the player will visit again sometime and concluding that the girls all love the player. After the credits, the player is presented with a thank you note from the game's developer, Dan Salvato. This time, the character files of all 4 girls are preserved during the game world's data wipe. Development and release. Dan Salvato spent an estimated 2 years working on Doki Doki Literature Club in secret before releasing it as his first game. Prior to its release, Salvato was known for creating the Franca Faces extension for Twitch.tv, his modding work in the Super Smash Bros. Scene, and for his custom Super Mario Maker levels. Doki Doki Literature Club was first released on September 22, 2017 on itch.io, and was later also released on Steam. The game is available as freeware with an optional pay-what-you-want model. Paying $10 or more unlocks a bonus fan pack that includes desktop and mobile wallpapers, the game's official soundtrack, and a digital concept art booklet. Salvato cited his love-hate relationship with anime as inspiration for creating Doki Doki Literature Club. Discussing the horror elements of the game, Salvato explained that he was inspired by things that are scary because they make you uncomfortable, not because they shove scary-looking things in your face. Reception. After its release, Doki Doki Literature Club quickly gained a cult following. Gita Jackson from Kotaku described Doki Doki Literature Club as a truly special game, adding, "If you like horror games, especially ones that really get under your skin, please check out Doki Doki Literature Club." GQ's Tom Phillip called it one of the scariest games I have ever played. He went on to praise the game's writing, saying it contained some of the most wickedly inventive narrative techniques I've ever seen, but commented that at times it felt like a slog, clicking through endless amounts of inane, flirty conversation about poetry. In its first 3 months of release, Doki Doki Literature Club was downloaded over 1 million times, and exceeded 2 million downloads about a month later. At IGN's Best of 2017 awards, the game won the People's Choice Award each for Best PC Game, Best Adventure Game, Best Story, and Most Innovative. IGN now ranked the game 16th in their list of the 25 best games of 2017. It was also nominated for the Matthew Crump Cultural Innovation Award and Trending Game of the Year at the upcoming 2018 SXSW Gaming Awards. Brought to you by Wikividi Documentaries. Would you like to know more